Okay, next up, we have a manufacturer and a true railroader, Alan Louise from Empire Trackworks, first time presenter on our show. Welcome to the show. Did I say that
Uh,
right?
no, everybody butchers it, and it's common practice for the last 55 plus years. So don't feel too bad. We'll just stick with Alan.
Alan,
There's no test on spelling or pronunciation, so we're all friends here.
I'll go with Alan Smith.
That's fine. I'll
Well,
take it.
welcome to the show, and let's just take a couple minutes. You're new to the show, and I think you were invited by Jamie Bothwell. That's how you found out. Were you aware of New Tracks modeling up until the introduction?
I have been contacted by New Tracks Modeling well over a year ago when the company started, and it just didn't fit into the timeline to get on board with it. But the timing is right, and I'm here tonight. First ever on New Tracks Modeling with you.
And when did you get into model railroading?
Oh, 5 years of age, and it's been going steady for 50 plus years, and here
And
we are.
what scale did you start with?
Started off with the typical HO scale. A lot of this is covered in the slide
Oh, that's
presentation.
right. That's right.
But
Yeah.
typically, the HO, the Lionel, and then got my first real layout, in ON30. But typical model railroader, background on I've had it. Everyone else has had it. It's no surprise.
Yeah, you're right. Your presentation covers this, so we don't need to get it twice. Why don't we pop up his presentation and I'll turn it over to you, Alan.
Okay. Like I said, there's no test at the end for the pronunciation or spelling, but we'll just stick with Alan. Next slide. The whole company actually is based upon my father, who passed away this last June. But he was a solid background to getting me with the idea of, yes, you can start a small business and take it as far as you want. So this he's a huge piece of the background of the company. Next slide. There's a quick agenda. You could read the slide yourself. Trying to keeping this as short as possible. That next slide. Typical guy. I grew up in the hobby. Following my dad, who was extremely passionate with the S gaugers. His name is well known within the S gauge community. At one time, he was the president of the NASG, the National Association of S gaugers. I got 22 years of active duty military under my belt. And as soon as I got out, retired out in 2008, been hired on by Norfolk Southern. And there's some of my credentials with them. And in 2009, bought the house and started my own personal layout.
Alan,
Next, yes.
Alan, wait before we buzz by this. Phil, I think you've posted a connection to Alan's father's layout. Could you come on for a moment and tell everybody how they could take a look at that?
There's actually a tab on my website, Empire-Trackworks, that has all the information about my father's personal train layout, which is now in the process of being dismantled. But I took responsibility of his website and added it to mine, so it will be there forever. But if you got a couple quick pictures that you were able to capture, we can bring those up.
Well,
I actually put a video. There's a link to a TSG multimedia video in the chat. I just re-put it in the chat. So if anyone wants to, you can grab that and go look. It's a pretty amazing layout.
And Alan, just curious, before the show, we had a little pre-show and we looked at the video, and quite honestly, it's the S scale is the Goldilocks scale. It's just perfect size if you're modeling standard gauge. What's becoming to all those world-class structures of your father's? Just curious.
All I know is the children are not responsible for the estate, and as far as the trains go within the estate, they're being handled by the executor of the estate, and I hope the best for the remaining pieces of the layout, rolling stock and structures. And it's my fear that a lot of it is just going to get thrown in the trash.
Is there
That's
any,
my absolute fear.
it's not my business, but I mean, I want our audience, both the Zoomers and the YouTubers, to take a look at this video. This is an absolutely stunning model railroad, his father, and I really think somebody ought to pursue the legacy here and find out what's happening to those structures because it's like throwing away Picasso.
Well, I have talked to the executor of the estate and tried to explain the historic importance behind this, one layout sitting there and, in California. Yeah, and they don't get it. They don't.
What part of California is it in?
Just south of San Francisco in Los Altos.
Okay. I
Um,
We don't need to
they,
talk about this any further, but I think we ought to have a discussion online and just see if we could chase down these structures.
well,
The models
it's
are, you know,
everything is supposed to happen in about 3 days.
oh,
So
wow.
a lot of it is, it's a little bit too late to try to save anything, but I'm making arrangements to obtain as much as I possibly can that they don't, collect up and take to take them out for evaluation to, have someone make a donation. I'm trying to preserve as much as I can, but I don't know if I'm going to have any luck at all.
Well, we don't need to talk about, let's have a little conversation offline just for,
Yeah,
I happen to be in California, maybe we can do something. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt your presentation, but if
no,
anybody
it's
wants to
okay.
look at
My dad was just a huge component to, me starting up the business. He was a great support. He didn't financially give me any money for it, which is fine, but he gave me a lot of ideas on how to be successful. And we'll see where we go with this in the future years.
all right, I didn't mean to interrupt your presentation, but it's just one of the nicest railroads I've ever seen. So, okay.
Well, I got it saved on my personal website, so anybody can go back and look at it, in the future. Let's go on to the next slide and see where we end up at. Obviously, throughout the years, as my childhood, I had the usual Lionel, HO, and bought the house. And, there's a picture of my personal layout in, the Plywood Pacific stage. It's got a little bit more done to it, but not much. And, it's ON30. And that's my first real layout really put together. Next slide, please. Here's how Empire Trackworks really came about. Larry Morton used to be the owner of Tamalco. And I got to be, I want to make it known that I don't know all the manufacturers' names. I might get some things messed up. I don't want to have any legal, issues with it. I'm just human. I might make a mistake every now and then on the wording and terminology. But Larry Morton owned Tamalco, and he lives really close in the area. He was the president of the Apple Valley Model Railroad Club and asked out to me if I would open up my personal layout for a round robin tour. And I told him, sure, not a problem. Come on by. And at the end of the day, he came by, to check up on everything. And he basically just looked at me and said, I'm selling the company. Do you want to buy it? And we went back and forth for a little bit, but the timing wasn't right for me. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't have the money for it. Nothing was right. But he ended up selling it off to someone else, and they now own Tamalco. But I started kind of thinking about it and got the what if bug and put it out there into the Facebook land on the on the 0130 chat groups that I was in, and people started buying turnouts, and then everything kept going good. And I said, you know what, I can do this. Did a little bit more research and put some real thought into it, and I went legit in early 24, and I knew that S scale was hurting, so I went ahead and targeted S scale in 0130. I was already invested in the fast tracks with 0130, so adding S scale really wasn't too much. I started attending, the O Scale West, the NASG, and the narrow gauge conventions, just to kind of get some feelers out there, and everything was positive. I had a fairly large customer base, and within the first year, and I was making profit, so I was happy. The customer comments were extremely positive, so I knew I was going somewhere right with this. Next slide, please. Yeah, time management is the hard part. I got family on one end of the candle. I got a full-time job with the railroad on the other side, and I find a little bit of time somewhere in between to actually run the company. And so, it's very typical for me to come home from a 10 to 12, maybe a 14-hour workday, come home, grab a cup of coffee, and just head straight downstairs to my little workshop and just spend an hour or two, fiddling around working on an order, and then I'll go upstairs and go to bed. But I have to make time for the company, and it just, unfortunately, it falls somewhere between family and the job. Next slide, please. And there's my family support group. I got the 3 grandkids that just live about 5 minutes away, and the wife. Wife is always telling me, "Don't you have something to do downstairs? Get yourself a cup of coffee and go downstairs. You got orders to fill. Have at it. This is what you wanted to do in life. Go do what you got to do." Yes, dear. And head downstairs and start filling up the orders. Next slide. A couple of the reasons why I really wanted to start Empire Trackworks is that there was a lot of websites out there offering turnouts for various scales, but a lot of them led to dead ends. And it's no surprise, you read all the forums out there, chat room forums, that most of the ready-to-run turnout options usually come with some known flaw with it, whether it's going to be something that right away that you have to fix, or something that's going to happen down in the future. You just read and watch it that there's always some issue with a ready to run turnout. And some manufacturers have just gone out of business, but their website is still functional, and there's nothing suitable or available for certain scales. There's ready to run ON30 turnouts if you want a number 5. If you want something other than a number 5, you're on your own. So the bottom line was the modeling community needed some help, and I wanted to fill that void and make things available for different scales that just weren't available as of the day I started up the company. Next slide, please. That's myself and my granddaughter. I forget which convention it was, but that was about 2 years ago. And these are not all, but most of my own personal responsibilities as it comes to running the company. So when you reach out by email or by phone call, I am the person that you're talking to. There's no one else. It's a one-man show. Everything from the manufacturing down to janitorial services, I got to take care of it. Next slide, please. How's it going so far? Well, following the 24 O Scale West, everything's been pretty steady. Lots of started pushing out some advertisement, and a lot of my orders have actually come by word of mouth, not so much, with advertisements. Recommendations. I've been supporting some YouTubers, especially with the Auto Creek Rio Grande and the Thunder Mesa Studios. They started off or were continuing their HON3 train layouts, and I wanted to get into the HON3 market, so I reached out to them and I provided them with some product, and they've been able to do some very well done product reviews on their personal YouTube channels. And I told them, just give me your honest feedback. Use them on the layout or fold them in half and throw them away. Just give me some honest feedback. and everything's been going extremely well. Everyone likes them, so I can't complain. And I will continue to attend O-Scale West, the NASG, and the National Narrow Gauge conventions, and keep my face out there with all the customers and the new people out there. Just a picture of the workshop that I have. It's nothing fancy. Media endorsements. I've been product reviews. We're in the 2025 0130 annual and the 25 Shortline Narrow Gauge Gazette. I don't remember which month, but I believe it was in the 50th anniversary edition. I've had a couple company interviews, published, and I've been having my products splashed out there on other YouTube channels, particularly the Thunder Mesa Studios and the Otter Creek and Rio Grande. They've been really helpful. Next slide, please. Ground zero of operations is basically a 12 by 12 basement office with just the usual, desk, chairs, shelving, and tools that we pretty much already have laying around our workshop. The only thing really extra is I did upgrade to a resistant soldering iron, and I am extremely heavily invested in the Fast Tracks track fixtures, mainly because I want repeatable reliability and repeatable standards on my product. If I get a request for something custom, I can hand build a turnout off of paper just fine, but I wanted repeatable standards in my products, and that's where I really like the Fast Track jigs that they have available. Next slide, please. Just more random pictures of ground zero downstairs, and it's usually not that clean. I am honestly a messy builder. I have tools everywhere. I have supplies everywhere, but I kind of clean it up for pictures. I'm usually working on one, if not two, or maybe three orders at one time. More ground zero. I just purchased a 3D printer for some future projects. Got a photo booth to take better pictures. And of course, I got my dogs that keep me company. Usually about 3 o'clock in the morning. They remind me it's time to go to bed. That I got a job to look out for. On the left side, of course, I'm using the Fast Tracks tools, but I created some handmade fixtures to hold them, so I can use two hands on the file and get a quicker and more accurate filing of the rail, so I don't have to hold the tool in one hand and file with the other hand. And the other advantage is I don't get the metal slivers in my hand or get burn marks from the file rubbing against my skin. So that was a really handy idea that I came up with. And I do plan on making something similar available that people can purchase from the company if they want to. But it's just something I came up with. Next slide. I handle multiple scales. I started off with S gauge and 0130, and it has rapidly expanded to S scale high rail, SN3, O2 rail, O13, O130, O12, and HO13. And I'm actually working on an extremely complex N scale custom project right now. I don't have any photos of it, but it involves double slips and crossings and normal turnouts. And the customer wants everything to be one piece with all the guardrails and the frog rails to be blended together. Extremely custom handmade job. And when I get that done, I'll be sure to take a picture and share it with the group, because that has taken me it's taken me months to get the parts in and get the pieces ready and come up with a plan on how to do it. But one thing you will note is you don't see HO scale on here. I have a handshake deal with Jeff Otto of Oak Hill Models. I reached out to him for some advice, and I have a handshake deal with him that I will not do HO scale. If I do get a request for HO scale, I'll refer them to Jeff Otto, And if he turns it down and hands it back to me, well, then, I have his blessing to go ahead and work on the project. So typically I will not do HO scale, but I do have the tooling for it. And next slide, please. Rail codes. All my rail comes from microengineering. I personally believe it's the industrial standard as far as rail goes. Nickel, silver, unweathered. Uh, I can work with all the different rail codes available. And if somebody really wants code 138, as long as they provide the rail, I can work with the code 138 to make their project complete. Next, please. Product quality. Everything is done with fixtures or paper templates. Nothing fancy here. It's essentially a Fast Tracks printed circuit board built turnout. But I have my own personal standards that I believe that I want my turnouts to meet certain standards, and if they don't meet the standards, well, then I'm not going to push them out to the customer, because I don't think that's right. So if it's not done right, it's not going out the door. One of the things that I have done with the printed circuit board method of building a turnout is I've added hidden power jumpers to provide power to the extended frog rails. Typically, those rails do not receive power. I figured out a way to reliably provide power to those rails, so we don't have to drop down an extra set of power feeds to them. Next slide, please. Current projects that are available is your standards, all different types of switches, three-ways, crossings, stubs, point derails, and anything custom that you can imagine. I'll review the request and I'll figure out one way or another how to make it work for you. Nothing is off limits. I have no problem. Send me your request and I'll either figure it out or politely let you know why I can't do it. It's too complex. I'll let you know why. But I haven't met a challenge I haven't been able to meet just yet. Next slide, please. Just more current project pictures that I have. I do make three-way stub turnouts, either as a kit or as what I like to call ready to drop in. Either way is just fine. Curve turnouts, any radiuses that you want, any scale that you want, any rail code, just let me know what you want and I'll be more than happy to make them for you. One thing I have not seen modeled, previously is a point derail. So I just kind of like altered the rail within the turnout fixture, and I just made a point derail out of it. And as of today, I have sold one of them. But I think it's just something that's unique and different that's not typically modeled on any railroad. Next slide, please. Options. Communicate to me what you want. If I can give you the item that you want, that's what's important for me. The routine options are, if you just want the skeleton format, or if you want the ties but not included, or if you want the ties attached, which way do you want the throw bar to be? The basic electrical upgrade, that's where I was talking about the frog rails having power to them. And then the full electrical upgrade is another option where essentially on the bottom of the frog, there's a 3-wire cable, and you drill an extra hole underneath the frog at the right location and drop that 3-wire cable down, hook that up to your, hook 2 of the wires up to your DCC bus or your DC bus, hook the other wire up to the frog for the phase changing of the frog. And then the entire turnout from one end to the other is completely powered. You can paint it. It's not going to affect the power to the turnout. As long as the top of the rails are clean, the entire turnout from one end to the other will have 100% power to it. And it's fully DCC compatible. Next slide, please. There's a picture of, it's a fuzzy picture, but we all know that the electrical path is carried by the printed circuit board on the top side, but I flipped the turnout over and I've got little hidden wire jumpers from the bottom of the rail to the bottom of the PC board, which carries power over to its sister rail on the other side. So that's my technique of carrying power over to the frog rails. It's not a secret. I offer that information freely to anybody that wants to use it and make improvements on their printed circuit board built turnouts. And then just another explanation of the full electrical upgrade. Essentially, you get a 3-wire cable underneath the frog that connects up to your bus line and your frog device, polarity device, and then the turnout's 100% powered. That's been a very popular option because it reduces the amount of installation time to near zero. And some folks are afraid or intimidated by drilling a hole next to the rail and possibly damaging the rail or damaging the turnout, and then having to solder to the rail. They rather just go with the option where it's already done and everything is completely hidden after the ballast is applied. That's just an option. Other options I don't think I have listed here is if you want extended rails on either end of the turnout. Normally I'll trim them off to a certain length, but if you want the rails to be extra long, I'll leave the extra rail on there for you. Especially if you have a turnout that's going straight into a relatively sharp curve, having the rail joint somewhere other than right next to the turnout, it provides a smoother transition into and out of the turnout. And that's also been a very popular option where I just leave extra rail on all 3 ends of the turnout, especially when you look at Dennis Carroll's Otter Creek and Rio Grande. I left some extra rail on the turnouts for him, and he was able to use that to make a crossover between the 2 turnouts without having a small section of rail in between them. He was able to essentially just trim the rail to length and have 2 turnouts right next to each other and have a perfect crossover. So it's just another option, all depending on what the customer wants. Next slide, please. Stub turnouts. I started making stub turnouts. On the left is a kit with no ties, and there's a little bit of work to be done by the when it's being installed, but I do provide instructions on what I recommend on how to do it. But it's fairly straightforward, and a novice can put them together. The advanced stub turnout, what I call the ready to drop in, it's essentially a 1-piece stub turnout, whether it's a 2-direction turnout or in the picture, that's a 3-way stub turnout. And one of the things that you do need to know is that both ends of the stub turnout are mechanically held together and electrically held together. So if you go for the full electrical upgrade where you just have the cables coming down, the entire turnout, once again, is 100% electrically connected and DCC compatible. And it is a little bit fragile until you get it installed, because the mechanical connection that I have underneath the ties, obviously it can't be too huge or too large of a diameter because it just won't work. But with just some tender love and care, this turnout can be installed fairly easy and fairly quickly, and be 100% reliable right out of the box. You just got to be careful with it because it is a little bit on the delicate side, but after it's installed, it's solid as a rock. Next slide, please. Let's talk about some of the custom work. There was a gentleman on Facebook that wanted O scale 125 and O 130 code 100, 45-degree crossing. And everyone chimed in with their opinions, which were basically, it can't be done the way you want it. And I chimed in and said, I'll take on the challenge. And we negotiated, it's like, okay, and this is the product that I came up with. Unfortunately, I made the 45-degree crossing the wrong direction. So now that I had a practice piece under my belt, I redid it in the correct orientation, and it turned out a lot better. But essentially, this is exactly what the customer wanted. 125 in the O scale and code 100 in the O130 side, and it's completely custom. I'm not going to give all my secrets away, but it's exactly what the customer wanted, and everybody was happy with it once it got all done. So custom work, I love a challenge. I love the challenge of custom. Next, please. More stuff is, the I want this category. Okay, I want ON30, some, ridiculously tight, turnout, or ridiculously, tight Y turnout. This is what I want. I'm running very small equipment. Okay, not a problem. I'll make it happen for you. The other was, I need a duplicate of a damaged turnout. Customer bought a turnout from somebody, and it didn't last very long, and so he gave me the pieces of it, and I was able to copy it, and the customer was happy. Again, like I was explaining about, custom options, is I knew with the customer that the turnout was going to be in a very sharp radius. So I left all the extra rail on all three ends of the turnout. That way there weren't any rail joints, right near the turnout that were going to cause any problems. So he got it installed. He says it works fine. He's happy with it. And so I can duplicate something that's not working right for you. I can redesign it and remanufacture it so it does work better for you. Next slide, please. Empire Trackworks is future products. I have just made the announcement, I think it was like last week, that the S scale code 100 flex track, which is what's pictured here, the final design has been officially approved. And so I am in the process of, or I am capable of taking orders for the S scale code 100 flex track. All the other scales and rail codes, those flex track pieces are being designed and developed by 3DP Trains. David, if I remember correctly, I may be wrong on that, but I believe David is his name. He's my CAD and 3D printer guy that's doing all the design elements. And last week, Jamie did his review of the S Code 100. And thank you, Jamie, for those kind remarks that you gave me. And we are continuing to develop the rest of the flex track. The narrow gauge flex track will not have tie plates on it. It will still have the ties, or it will still have the spike details in black, but it won't have the tie plate details on there, since most narrow gauges didn't have tie plates on them anyway. And if everything goes well, then I can pursue, offering the flex track and dual gauge. And I do plan on having matching ties for the turnouts that we produce. So that way I have a complete system of track, not only the flex track, but the turnouts themselves. Everything will be compatible with other manufacturers, but I want Empire Trackworks to have a system of track that is reliable. And one of the things about my flex track, or Empire Trackworks' flex track, is that it's meant to flex. It's not too stiff. It's not too loose. It's engaged, and it's flexible. It's, you can try, different radiuses that you want. And, if you need to, if you're just playing around with it, you can return it back to its normal straight position fairly easy without too much difficulty. And, I think that's a huge positive for my brand of flex track. There is one major downside to running a small business with family and a regular job, is that my website is completely out of date. That's not the fault of my web designer. That's my fault for not putting the time into it. But I do not have all the updated products available listed on the website, and the prices, unfortunately, are also outdated. But everyone's been pretty acceptable to getting notice that there has been changes to the prices, and we negotiate back and forth to come up with a fair price for depending on what the order is, and everything is okay. The easiest way to order from Empire Trackworks, just send me an email. The email's right there, empire-trackworks@outlook.com. Just send me an email, and that gets the ball rolling. And it doesn't matter where I'm at, in my day-to-day activities. I check, email 2, 3 times a day, and I'll reply back well within 24 hours. And I don't collect any money until the detailed invoice is approved. I want to know exactly what you want. That way I can provide exactly what you're expecting. And I don't collect money until, we come up with an agreement on what you want and what the cost is going to be. And to keep things fair with all my customers, orders are built in sequence established by the payment date. I believe that's fair with the amount of orders that I have, the amount of scales I'm dealing with, the amount of available time that I have. I had to come up with a plan to make it fair, and that was the only way I can do it. But I do keep everybody updated on their orders. Typically on Fridays, I update the Facebook page with a status of all the orders, which ones have been shipped, which ones are waiting for raw materials to come in, and where you stand in the build queue. So if anybody needs to check up on see where they're at on their order, check on the Facebook page. I also, since I'm on call 24/7 with the railroad, I answer the phone all day long. If you got a question, call me. If I'm not physically at work, I will answer the phone, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at noon. I will answer the phone and discuss your order with you. So I am available by phone 24 hours a day. I have enough orders right now where I'm absolutely booked up at least through early November, if not mid-December. If my projections are correct and everything is relatively calm with working on the real railroad, I'm pretty much booked up through the early November at this point. And I do my best to keep customers informed on the status of their order, when it's going to get started and when to expect it to be shipped out.
Okay.
But next slide, please. And there's how you can get in touch with me. Don't forget the dash in the on the website, or the dash on the email address. And you look out for me on Facebook, and open the floor to questions.
Any questions for Alan? We're running a little late here, so let's.
I talk a lot.
Well, I think you did a great job. Sounds like you got your hands full, and I think what's really neat is the quality work and the emphasis on quality. And I know you've got all these products, but I think there's a real need for ON30 Flex Track and somebody to keep Pico honest, to be honest with you.
Well, I know Microengineering has ON30 Flex Track, but
Yeah.
I looked around for ON3 Flex Track. You're not, unless you find someone selling it, you're not going to find anything new from the manufacturer.
Yeah, that's for
Pretty
sure.
pretty much the same, if I remember correctly, with the SN3 Flex Track. Unless you find someone with a basement supply, there's nothing new out there. So those are the immediate voids that I want to fill.
Alan, I have a question. It's Greg. Have you thought of doing any ON18?
No, I haven't thought about it, but I can do it. I mean, rail is rail, PC tie is PC tie. Just how far apart is the gauge? So that's easy for me.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's a rapidly growing scale. Well, thank you, Alan. And we've had two great new presenters on today, which is terrific. We're trying to expand the show into different scales and different things and different people, and appreciate you coming on. And
Well,
remember,
thank you for inviting me, Tom.
yeah, and your segment will be broken out in a couple days and put on YouTube independently as a new tracks. So we'll see how many views you get, but it looks like you've got a winner here, and best of luck going forward and get some sleep, eh?
All right. Thank you. Y'all have a good night.